All right, hey folks, we are all here and ready to go here, so I'd like to start this meeting off and say thank you for being here today. Lindsay, I think that this is a meeting that you're presenting some information for us.
Well, Commissioners, this is actually intended to be a follow-up workshop. There had been some interest in more discussion on the decision package that MAPD had submitted called Plan Implementation. And if you have your Volume 2 binders with you, that's on pages 16 and 17. This, at the time, the manager had referenced that we would have more time for follow-up questions. Right. And so there's no formal presentation or anything, but we have the MAPD folks here ready to answer any questions you might have that you didn't have a chance to answer at the last presentation.
Very good. All right. Well, so do we want to just go back to what we were and have a reminder as to some of the budget? Would that be okay to just remind us what the budget request was all about? And
absolutely.
Okay, let's do that to start out.
And so in that case, sorry, let me get my book in front of me. You may recall that for the 2016 adopted budget, there was a reduction for MAPD, and that was for 4 different programs. The total requested budget, and let me get to that page, I apologize. I'm sorry? Thank you, Ron. Okay, so page 104 of our books. My apologies. The total request, based on a flat budget with 2016 for 2017, is $584,858. And as we can see up on the screens, we've had a request for an additional $111,000 related to plan implementation. And so I believe you actually have their 2 slides from their presentation at your seats. And so you can quickly review what that is. And Dale, if you have any additional follow-up information you'd like to provide, I'd welcome that. The question before had been how many staff there was. They have 14. Historically, the funding agreement between the city and the county has been that the city and county each split half of those costs. Up until 2015, that amount was just over $740,000, and then we had the reduction last year. And so this is to partially restore some of that funding.
All right, thank you.
And so any questions or answers, I guess we would turn that over to you.
Commissioners, what questions do you have? Commissioner Renzo?
Well, I guess I just want to clarify, and if MAPD staff have any questions, the intent last year was to reduce funding for future plans and fully fund current plans. And if anything different than that is being done, then we need to have the manager check into that. There should be no effect on current plans. And so I'm kind of concerned from things I've been told that maybe City of Wichita's not following through with the intent of what we wanted, but we got a listing of all the things that MAPD spends money on and how much, etc. And the intent was to reduce the amount for future plans, not current plans. So I don't know, is our current plans operations being affected?
Let's see, here's the best way to phrase this. Part of the dilemma that I'm having as far as the department head for the planning department is we've got one side of the street that is very much interested in current plans. We have other side of the street that has commitments due to the adoption of the comprehensive plan for long-range plans. And so I'm trying to figure out a way that we move both of those forward in the most economical and practical way. And so we have been looking at reorganizing the way we're set up. And in fact, we've already done some of those things now. For example, someone in advanced plans is now basically doing the job I did as current plans manager. We're fortunate that the current plan staff are all people. I think Jess McNeely is the newest one, and he's been there, I think, 12 years. So they all know their jobs, and so we've been able to be more efficient with that by having someone that had been doing 100% of their work on advanced plans taking over that current plan slot. What I was trying to do with this request was to preserve the same number of advanced current plans people as we had before, but if that doesn't work, it doesn't work, and we'll figure a way around it and make it work, I guess is what I want to assure the commission.
Well, I would say our intent was we provided enough funding to maintain all the positions for current plan. And if there's less funding, to me the priority is current plans. And if you need positions need to be eliminated from future plans and shifted to current plans, that's the right way to go. I would prefer that when it comes to future plans that we each pay for our own aspect of future plans. I don't think it's necessary to combine those two particular. I mean, we don't pay for current plans of any other city. I mean, future plans of any other city in the county, you know, and but anyway, current plans is very important, and we're fully supportive of that. So that was my intent. So
okay, and we'll keep that in mind as we work more on this. What I think will be a more detailed reorganization of the way the department is operating.
Other questions? Commissioner Norton?
I have no aversions to putting money into advanced plans.
we're already putting 100,000 into it.
So if I understand correctly, the money that we're funding right now, is it being offset somehow within the total budget over there? They're using that money not the way we intended, perhaps?
What I can tell you is by division how much we're spending on each of the divisions, if that's helpful. Yeah. I mean, what I'm looking at is I'm being given tasks to do, and I'm just trying to assign the right people to do the tasks, irregardless of quote unquote who's paying for it, so to speak, if that's the objective way to look at it. But for example, right now in 2016, we're estimating that we're paying that it's costing $573,878 is what we're spending on zoning subdivision work, and for advanced plans we are spending, there's $328,344 that's salaries only, and then there's a $14,000 grant, or there's a $14,000 charge that we pay to get a grant that pays for somebody else, so the total amount is $413,217 is what we're paying for advanced plans for 2016.
With the $111,000 request, does that bring us up to 50-50 with the city then? Is that what that would do?
I thought it was like 56-46 somewhere, or 43-44 somewhere in there. It got it closer, but it wasn't 50-50 as from what I remember from the last discussion.
Okay. And if we don't approve this, what happens?
Well, as I said before, we're going to make it work. I'm just doing what I think a prudent department head would do in terms of trying to be prepared for contingencies, because one of the concerns that I have is in the move over to the 271 building, it's my understanding that MAPD is going to start doing plans reviews using a computerized software package, and that there may be additional demands on the planning department to look at plans that we are not looking at today. If that never happens, then that won't be additional work, but I'm concerned enough about that if in fact that's what happens, I don't have anybody that can spend a lot of time doing that now. I mean, there's roughly 1,500 to 2,000 commercial plans that go through the city and the county, and we only see a very few of those now as part of our normal activities of rezoning and reviewing CUPs and PUDs. But if we were asked to start to look at every one of those for conformance with the zoning code, then that basically is going to be a full-time job for at least one person and maybe more.
Okay, just another point on this. It also shows FTE request is 0. So does that make sense if we were to approve the $111,000 but not change the staffing table to include additional people?
Well, yeah, that's, I mean, the whole point would be to maintain a position, so that would, unless, I don't know how the bookkeepers do it.
That's
maybe
because the staffing table wasn't reduced as a result of the reduction to begin with.
Okay, so this is funding positions that are basically not currently funded, but they're on the staffing table?
They are on the city staffing table.
Okay.
We don't technically have any MAPD positions. It's just a contractual
I see.
cost that we pay to them. But to the extent they do have positions on their staffing table that are funded, it's up to city to cover that.
All right, other questions from commissioners? I think that's, Commissioner Unruh?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, Dale, what is the total budget of your department?
in terms of, for 2016, the total salaries and benefits is $1,308,368, but we also have about $140,000 or $145,000 in cost, contractuals and paper and all the stuff that it takes to make the department run. Derek, do you have a?
Well, that's close enough.
Close enough.
And then we're paying how much as part of that?
$584,000, and I thought I had it here. $584,858.
Okay, so that would mean the difference between what we're paying and the whole cost of running your operation is about $800,000.
Yeah, the city, for 2016, the city is contributing $740,000. How much? $740,341.
Okay. And 111,000 more brings us up right at 700,000.
Yeah, because at this point I don't have we're using that number because that's the number that they gave us for 2016, but the impression I'm getting is we're not going to get that same number from the county, from the city next for 17. The funding is going to be reduced.
So the practical result, if we don't approve this request and the city reduces, then what's that mean to your department?
Since 90% of our budget is people, there'd be essentially positions would have to be eliminated.
And services would then be reduced.
Yes.
And if we go the 111,000 more to make us 695 or whatever, the city's going to do least that much, probably?
I would assume that it'd be pretty close to the 50-50, but again, I don't have a hard number from them yet.
Okay. Okay, well, that helps me understand, but so our question, I mean, our decision is, are we willing to reduce staff and reduce services as this finally plays out? Or do we want to pay the extra $111,000?
Yeah, and like I said, we'll do the best we can with whatever decision is made. We're just trying to be forthright and prudent about the concerns that we have.
Are we going to have people from the builders or developers or whatever? I mean, they're going to be screaming at somebody. I mean, if they don't get their plans through. Are they screaming now? I mean, do they feel like they're getting good service now?
I have not received any complaints at this point. We think we're delivering timely service with the applications they're receiving. This year is picking up. In fact, Derek was looking at the fees. We're already at 50% of what we projected to bring in as fees. So we're pretty close to on target. Now I'm completely new at this, so if I'm talking out of turn, let me know. But the other option that I thought of is right now the fees that we get, as I understand it, when they come in, they are then split 50-50 and returned to the city and the county. If it was possible for the department to keep the amount of fees, that would go a long ways towards addressing that need as well, and maybe offset that we don't actually need more money in the sense of the $111,000 if we could retain the fees, if in fact what I'm describing is accurate.
Commissioners, I believe that's slightly incorrect. The fees, as I've understood it, are retained in the city's financial system and applied against the budget of MAPD. And to the extent that the fees exceed the amount that was expected when the budget was originally adopted,
Okay.
The excess is applied on a pro rata basis against the city and county funding contributions. And if as a result there is surplus at the end of the year, the city writes us a check for our share of that surplus.
Well,
I'm good right now.
Commissioner Unruh, okay. Let's go to Commissioner Peter John next.
Well, let me ask Chris, has the city written any checks in the recent past on that point?
I know they have in the past. I couldn't tell you what the most recent year is when that happened.
I mean, did it happen, any idea if it happened in 15 or 14?
It could have. I just don't. I don't know.
Lindsay?
The records we have do show that there was about 54,000 received in 2014 and 22,000 in 2015.
Okay.
Yeah, then that's
4,000 and 22,000 respectively.
not as helpful as I thought it was. I was thinking it was the whole deal, but I see now how it's divided up.
Dale, do you have any idea at this point, has the city given you any budget targets in terms of where they're looking at your departmental budget to be for 17 compared to this year? And I'm guessing you said this year it's about $740,000 plus that $15,000 grant?
Yeah, the grant is not plus. That's what we pay in order to get a grant.
Oh, okay, so it's more of a minus then?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it's about 700,
Yeah.
and that comes out of the city side or out of both sides, or?
Like I said, we look at it as one budget. We don't really, it's not county money, it's not city money. It's
Okay.
just the department's money when we're.
Well, has
Yeah.
city finance given you any target? I mean, if you're getting roughly, and I'm going to use a figure, I think you used 740,000.
That's what we have for 16.
For 16, so if they
But
give
I
me a
am-
target for next year?
Based on the comments that we received this morning, I'm fairly certain we are not going to get that again. I
But you
just
don't-
don't know how much less.
You don't have no idea, it could be,
Yeah, I need to have some more discussions with city finance. I had hoped to do that before this meeting, but with the briefings this morning, I never could catch up with.
no, I understood.
Yeah.
You've been active. Sounds like something to, for both the city and county to talk about and consider. Thank you.
Commissioner Ranzau?
Yeah, just to clarify, really there should be no reason for decrease in service to the builders or that they should be complaining about anything, because I don't know if you're aware of this, we were given a priority list and a list of all the function within MAPD and how much was spent. So the intent was to take a certain amount out of future plans and a couple other things that we didn't think we should be paying for, and continue to fully fund the current plans. So I don't know if you've seen that or not. If it'd be helpful, you can come by my office. I'll show it and walk you through
Okay.
what thought process was. So from our intent, there's a certain amount of money for current plans and future plans, and we said we want to continue to fully fund that. And I even made the comment to John Slagle and others that if at some point we need more for future plans, we can do that, but we didn't really feel the need to put all that money into future plans for a variety of reasons. But
Yeah.
so that would be at least the perspective that I thought we took last year. And if you, like I said, if you want to come by and look at the numbers and kind of go through that, I'd be happy to do that.
Well, just my mindset is, I mean, the current plans part is what keeps everything going, and so we got to keep that going.
Right.
All right, Commissioner Unruh?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. What are the what are the reasons that, or refresh my memory, that we don't want to be involved in future plans? I mean, Richard or whoever.
Well, we're not involved in future plans of any other communities. We got to set priorities. As you know, we have some financial issues, and we want to. There's things that we must do and things that we could do, and I think we've been subsidizing some of the future plans and operations of the city of Wichita, which were unnecessary, and I don't think it's the highest priority of the list of all the things that we need to fund. That was really towards the bottom. That and a few other things that we were doing.
Okay.
I'm trying to remember back.
Mr. Provost.
I'm sorry, Mr. Cronus?
Commissioners, if I could, I think there's a disconnect between what the county's intentions are and the way the arrangement between the city and the county with regard to MAPD has been set up over the years. Traditionally, the funding agreement, the annual funding agreement that the county and the city entered into with regard to MAPD essentially said that the city was responsible for providing a planning function, and they were going to provide those services for both the city government and the county government, and they were going to pay for those services in part with funding that the county provided to the city. The county's funding traditionally has been a lump sum, a contractual service payment, and we have had no ability to say that any particular dollar of county funding would or would not be used for any particular activity undertaken by the planning department. What happened last year is that the commission, the county, reviewed in somewhat greater depth than had been done previously the specific programs undertaken by planning and elected not to participate in certain of those programs, and on that basis reduced the amount of funding that the county would provide below the traditional roughly 50-50 split. The disconnect arises from the fact that there has not been, there continues to not be, a funding agreement between the city and county that says how the county's funding is to be used. And so the county is providing a lump sum of funding to the city, and the city, on the basis of the way we've always done business, is using that funding to provide planning services, and as the managing partner, they're making the decision about what planning services will be provided. In order for us to accomplish what I think are your objectives, and say that the county will pay for these programs and won't pay for those programs, we need to have a funding agreement that specifically addresses those programs and says what amount of money the county is going to contribute to each one of them, and have the city agree to that, so that we then can be assured where our money is going. And so in fairness, so that the planning director knows where our money is going. Because right now he's a city employee, and he's got a budget for 100% of his activities coming from the city. He doesn't know or really care whose money is paying the bill. He's got a budget, and he's got a mandate to deliver services, and he's going to do that.
Go ahead.
I'll say, I think that's largely correct. And another comment, at some point last year, we had a meeting with the mayor and the city manager was there, and I can't remember if it was Paul or you. Okay. And the city manager said we probably need to have a discussion about what each entity wants to expects to get out of that, and kind of what you're talking about. And I'm not sure, maybe that hasn't gone very far. Maybe that's something the managers can work out together. But I think he understood the general intent, and he made that statement. We need to figure out what each entity wants out of that and kind of come to agreement. So I think that's probably right.
All right. And I'd like to have someone remind me as well. You know, last year when we talked about, and this was early in the year, probably March or April, I think Manager Buchanan presented a manager's recommended one-page budget proposal. But in that, I believe there was some, I'm not sure if it was in his proposal, if it was something that happened later. I don't remember exactly what the timing of all that, but there was some discussion about us reducing funding to MAPD, and I think that we talked about that at the time, that this was something that had been discussed at his level with the city of Wichita. So I know there were some issues of day reporting fees, and I think there were some issues of the bicycle plan. I'm not sure what all was all mixed into that deal, but that's what I'm saying is there was some early communication happened between our manager and their manager regarding proposals that potential funding changes that were going to happen. Has Wichita talked to us in any way, talking about what they're proposing in terms of reductions of their funding to MAPD this year? Have they talked to anybody here to talk about what they're thinking about? Dale, you mentioned a minute ago they're talking about potentially reductions in funding. So what are we? Have they notified us of this? Do we know this is a fact, and how much money?
Well, I guess that's what I'm saying is this morning we had a brief meeting where we discussed downgrading positions, like taking a manager position and reducing that to a senior, shifting people from one division to another. We also talked about offloading duties that we're doing now to other departments, and those haven't been finalized, but I had a meeting last night for about 20 minutes with the city manager about potential changes that he and I had been talking about for a while, but there's been no decision on the city's part in terms of where that was relative to the way they're funding it, the department now.
I guess I'd like to request we would formalize our communications on this issue, because it sounds like it's been discussed in your presence. You're not necessarily messaging this to us. It sounds like you're just carrying some things you heard, and you're not delivering a message to us from Wichita. So I guess I'd like to formalize our communications over this. We are a partner. We're a partner. We have a partnership with Wichita. We need to communicate formally. Yeah, and I think we're not doing a good enough job at that. So we need to step up the communications.
And I think part of the issue is that the county has started much earlier on the budget process than what at least the city has, at least in my involvement in there. And like I was telling folks here, I didn't realize that today was basically just for us. I thought it was for all the other departments doing things, and if I'd realized that it was just for us, I probably would have tried to press harder for more definitive answers. So part of that's my fault. I just didn't realize that's what this was.
Kind of what Chris was talking about is, the old language in the current agreement that we have is a little confusing on this exact topic, on county and city agreeing upon a budget for a specific purpose. And I think that the new agreement will alleviate a lot of that and really force us to sit down and come to an agreement on different things. But we're still just waiting on the city to get back to us on it.
Okay, so in that line, I guess since we've heard through Dale, they're contemplating some reductions, and the purposes of those reductions is not clear to us. I guess I would like to say, if nothing else, we ought to at least be talking about, if they have any serious plans to do that, we'd like to know exactly what they're talking about and what level and what services are going to be impacted by that. So as a partner, I think we deserve that type of communication back and forth. We'd like to give it to them. We owe it to them as well. And I think we have done this in the past, although every city council member, I don't think, got the information. I do believe the manager did.
Well, I would hope to be able to get something back to you by Friday.
Very good. Commissioner Unruh?
No, thank you. What if the county had its own planning department? What are the ramifications of that? I mean, why do we have to partner with a city? Can we just run our own? Is that more expensive, less expensive?
Well, I mean, I guess I'm not sure I can speak to the expense. The philosophy behind having a unified department is there's a one-stop shop. The rules, the zoning code would be the same for the city and the county. As you may remember, prior to 1996, there was a separate county code versus the city code. The subdivision regulations were the same, but the zoning regulations were different. And then in 1996, those were unified so that it's the exact same code mostly in both jurisdictions. Going back to prior to 1958 when MAPC and MAPD were created, I believe I counted up 19 different sets of jurisdictions were operating in the county at the time, because you not only had every city having their own code, you also had townships that had adopted zoning, then you had the county that had adopted zoning in some portions of the county but not all of it, and then the city of Wichita had extraterritorial jurisdiction outside. And so it's just a more efficient, makes it easier for developers to know who to contact and what the responsibilities are.
Yeah, well, for all those advantages, and we're a partner because it brings cost efficiencies and process efficiencies, and the customers like it. And it would seem like if we're going to be a partner because it's beneficial, I don't know if we have to like every single piece of the partnership, because we get enough good out of it that we'll help support the organization because we're a partner in it. So I guess I'm saying I don't know how we slice and dice every bit of our financial contribution to the partnership if within the planning this is the functions that they provide. And so I'm just wondering how smart it is for us to try to cut out $100,000 and say, well, we think that's for future plans, and so we don't want to do that. I mean, if we're going to be a partner and try to move it forward, then fighting over this particular aspect for $100,000, I mean, I'm not sure that's smart of us to do.
Commissioner Ranzau?
Well, I think over time, some of the functions in the planning department had morphed and got morphed into things that weren't originally intended. And I think it's very smart to analyze how you're spending money when you have budget problems. $100,000 might not seem like a lot of money to some, but it is to me. And quite frankly, I think it's the right thing to do. We shouldn't be subsidizing activities that we shouldn't be participating. We need to prioritize things. And being a good partner doesn't mean we have to let other people take advantage of us and ask us to subsidize things that they should be paying for themselves if they think it's important enough. And we owe that to the taxpayers, particularly in this current setting, to be critical and analyze things and ask questions and not do it just because that's the way we've always done it before. That just want to throw money at something you can make everybody happy at some point, I guess.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
Do the smaller communities pay anything in? Do they participate in any financial way?
No.
But they get benefit from
To the extent that we do the urban area of influence, taking the zoning cases to them whenever, under the old zoning area of influence and now under urban area of influence, that's the primary benefit that they get is the day-to-day zoning change reviews if it's in their territory.
Okay, I just want to get clear in my mind that there's benefit to all the communities, not just Wichita.
We also do the annexation boundary stuff for all the cities as well,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Which is one of the things we took a look at last year, eliminating funding for, but then elected not to.
Okay.
Commissioner Unruh, any other comment?
Don't think so.
Okay. Relevant to what Commissioner Ranzau said just a moment ago, before Commissioner Unruh spoke, is it possible within MAPD to actually recognize that maybe future plans is a Wichita desire and you fund that from Wichita dollars, and other things that are common to Sedgwick County and Wichita, you fund that from the larger budget? In other words, is it not possible to have that thought process and operate that way within the MAPD?
Well, I guess all I can go back to is the joint agreement that is not in effect basically said that a budget for the department would be agreed upon and then be split 50-50 by the two governments, and that's just the way we've done it over the last however long it's been since '58. But with apparently whatever dialogue there's going on now, that would be something that could be worked into the agreement. I will tell you that John was sensitive to that, and I am trying to be sensitive to it in how we assign tasks to the extent that we can.
Kind of correct you there. Honestly, the language since the 58 was a bit more confusing. The new proposal is actually a lot cleaner. That's kind of what's so frustrating about it right now.
Well, it's clear that if our mission, if our things we want to support from Sedgwick County are different than the city of Wichita, and we fund the things we want to be involved in and support differently than they fund. If it doesn't affect what actually is being done by MAPD, then it's always going to leave a shortfall in funding. So I guess I see that's what's driving a larger budget request, perhaps, and perhaps maybe giving them a desire to change the way they fund it as well. But I think at some point you're going to have to recognize that the things we're supporting are not necessarily identical to what Wichita is wanting to support.
Right.
And you have to manage it somehow within the office. So I think this agreement that's being discussed hopefully will reflect that requirement to service both organizations for the things they want to fund and things they don't want to fund. All right. Any other comments or questions from commissioners? We're seeing no other discussion. Are we done with this budget workshop?
That would be the culmination of this one, and we'll work with Dale and Derek to get you follow-up information that you requested, hopefully by the end of the week, but we'll see how that goes. And the manager has indicated he'll be working on the formalized communications. So.
A special thanks to Dale Miller for coming over here and giving us good information. I appreciate you very, very much for doing that.
More than happy to do it.
Thank you, Lindsay, as well. All right, we're adjourned.